When my grandmother passed, she left me everything: her creaking old house, her towering collection of antiques, and, most unsettlingly, her dolls. She had hundreds of them, all lined up neatly in glass cabinets that spanned the length of the upstairs hallway. Porcelain, cloth, wooden, plastic. They filled the shelves like an audience of wide-eyed spectators. As a child, I hated them. Their unblinking stares and fixed smiles haunted my dreams. So when it came time to clean out her house, I did the logical thing. I packed every doll into boxes, sealed them tightly, and brought them to my home, intending to sell them or donate them later. Big mistake. The weirdness began almost immediately. The first night as I lay in bed, I swore I heard whispers, faint and fleeting like the distant hum of a conversation you couldn't quite make out. I told myself it was nothing. Old houses creak, don't they? But the next morning, as I walked into the living room, I found one of the dolls sitting on the coffee table. Its name was Margaret. I remembered it because Grandma had always insisted on naming her favorites. Margaret was porcelain with painted blue eyes and golden curls that framed her face in a mockery of innocence. I had packed her at the bottom of a box wrapped tightly in bubble wrap. My stomach dropped. I was alone in the house. I told myself I must have forgotten her when unpacking, that I had absent-mindedly left her there. But deep down, I knew better. The second night was worse. I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of faint, rhythmic tapping. It took a moment for my groggy brain to register the source: my bedroom window. I turned my head, and there was another doll, one I didn't recognize, perched on the windowsill. Its tiny hand knocked against the glass with unnatural precision. I couldn't move. My body was frozen, my breath caught in my throat. The doll's face pressed against the window, its expression shifting into something far too lifelike. When I finally gathered the courage to switch on the bedside lamp, it was gone. I didn't sleep after that. By the third night, I was a wreck. I considered throwing the boxes out, but something stopped me. A sick, unexplainable compulsion to keep them, as if the dolls themselves wouldn't let me get rid of them. That was the night I woke to find Margaret standing over me. Her tiny porcelain hands gripped a paring knife, the blade gleaming in the dim moonlight spilling through the curtains. She didn't move, not at first, but her head tilted ever so slightly, as if she were studying me. My scream caught in my throat as I rolled out of bed, narrowly dodging her as she brought the knife down, burying it into the mattress. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding as I grabbed a shoe from the floor and hurled it at her. Margaret crumpled to the ground, but I knew better than to think it was over. I spent the next day locking the dolls in my garage. Every single one went into a heavy chest that I bolted shut. But it didn't help. That night I heard footsteps, tiny, deliberate ones skittering across the hardwood floors. I barricaded myself in my bedroom, clutching a baseball bat, but the sounds didn't stop. At dawn, I found the chest open, the lock snapped in half. The dolls were back, scattered throughout the house as if mocking me. One sat in my armchair, its head turned toward the door. Another was perched on the kitchen counter, its tiny feet dangling over the edge. Margaret was back on the coffee table, her hand resting on the knife she'd wielded the night before. The tension reached a breaking point on the fifth night. I woke to a low, mechanical laughter of a wind-up doll. But it wasn't a recording. It was real, guttural, and filled with hatred. The dolls were in my room this time. Margaret led the group, her chipped face illuminated by the faint glow of the nightlight. Behind her, others began to move, their joints clicking and grinding as they shuffled closer. I fought back. The bat connected with the first doll, shattering it into pieces, but the others swarmed. Their tiny hands clawed at my skin, their glassy eyes reflecting my terror. I flung them off, smashing, stomping, doing anything I could to stop them. But for everyone I destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear. In the chaos, I managed to grab a can of lighter fluid from the kitchen. The smell of gasoline filled the air as I doused the dolls, my hands trembling. They didn't stop advancing, their painted faces twisted into expressions of rage. I struck a match. The flames roared to life, consuming them in an instant. Their high-pitched screams echoed through the house, and for a moment, I thought I'd won. But as the fire died down, I saw these shadows on the walls, dozens of them, moving independently of the flickering light. The dolls were gone, but something far worse had taken their place. I left that house the next morning, abandoning everything I owned. I don't know if the shadows followed me, but sometimes late at night I swear I hear them whispering. And I wonder if Grandma ever knew the evil she'd left behind.